I learned much from the order of the Jesuits. Until now, there has never been anything more grandiose on the earth than the hierarchical organization of the Catholic Church. I transferred much of this organization into my own party. I'm going to let you in on a secret. I am founding an order. In my burghs of the order, we will raise up a youth which will make the world tremble.
July 1897. Hitler enrolled in a monastery's choir in school. Adolf continues to do well, achieving the Austrian equivalent of straight A's. He will later recall, "Since my free time, I have received singing lessons in the cloister at Lambach. I had excellent opportunity to intoxicate myself with the solemn splendor of the brilliant church festivals. It seemed to me perfectly natural to regard the abbot as the highest and most desirable ideal, just as my father regarded the village priest as his ideal." May 22nd, 1904. 15-year-old Adolf Hitler is confirmed Roman Catholic at Linz Cathedral, sponsored by one of his father's pallbearers and former customs house colleague. Adolf Hitler, son of the Catholic Church, died while defending Christianity. It is therefore understandable that words cannot be found to lament over his death, when so many were found to exalt his life. Over his mortal remains stands his victorious moral figure, with the palm of the martyr. God gives Hitler the laurels of victory. Spanish dictator Francisco Franco, Knight of the Order of Christ, published on the 3rd of May 1945, the day of Hitler's death. The Führer had come to power thanks to the votes of the Catholic Zentrum only 5 years before. But most of the objectives cynically revealed in Mein Kampf are already realized. This book of insolent challenge to the Western democracies was written by the Jesuit Father Stampf and signed by Hitler. For, as so many ignore the fact, it was the Society of Jesus which perfected the famous Pan-German program as laid out in this book, and the Führer endorsed it. The Secret History of the Jesuits, page 138. On 30 January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor. On 23 March 1933, his government was given legislative powers through the Enabling Act and was passed by all Reichstag except for the Social Democrats and Communists, whose deputies had already been arrested. Hitler had obtained the votes of the Center Party, led by Prelate Ludwig Cass, by issuing oral guarantees of the party's continued existence and the autonomy of the Church and her educational institutions. He also promised good relations with the Holy See, which some interpret as the hint of a future concordat. Born in Trier, Cass was ordained a priest in 1906 and studied history and canon law in Trier and Rome. 1906, he completed a doctorate in theology, and in 1909, he obtained the second doctorate in philosophy. In 1910, he was appointed rector of an orphanage and boarding school near Koblenz. Until 1933, he devoted his spare time to scholarly pursuits. Later, Cass would frequently travel to Rome, where he would stay with Priscilla, and he experienced firsthand the new ladder entry, which he published on. In 1931 and 1932, continued as an advisor in negotiations for the Reich Concordat. That, however, came to nothing until 1933. 1933, on 15 March, Cass was the main advocate supporting the Hitler administration's Enabling Act in return for certain constitutional and allegedly ecclesiastic guarantees. Hitler responded positively via Franz von Papen. 23 March, Cass gave a speech outside Reichstag, voicing the center's support for the bill amid concerns put aside. This vote for the Enabling Act was a major step in the institution of the dictatorship of Adolf Hitler and is remembered as the prime example of a democracy voting for its own demise. Because of Cass's request for guarantees and because of his later involvement in the Reich Concordat negotiations, Cass and Papen traveled together to Rome and had discussions on the train. Von Papen assured Cass that a concordat with the new government was a sure thing. Cass had worked on the Reich Concordat for over 10 years. Now, Hitler was offering it. The liberal Social Democrats fiercely opposed the Enabling Act. Hitler needed a two-thirds majority, so the balance lay with the Zentrum, the Catholic Party. Zentrum leader Monsignor Ludwig Cass, a close friend and advisor to Eugenio Facili, the future Pope Pius XII, addressed the Reichstag. Far from attacking the Enabling Act or disputing Hitler's claim that Nazism was based on Christianity, Cass called for a yes vote. The Zentrum faction did vote yes, and the act became law, according to the National Catholic Reporter correspondent John Allen. Cass acted in coordination with the German bishops. 4 days later, on March 28, the German bishops rescinded their ban on Nazi Party membership. On April 1st, Cardinal Adolf Bertram of Breslau addressed German Catholics in a letter warning them to reject as a matter of principle all illegal and subversive activities. To most Catholics, it looked as if the Church wanted a modus vivendi with Hitler. The same impression was created a few weeks later when Hitler held a plebiscite to endorse the decision to pull Germany out of the League of Nations, which received the endorsement of the Catholic press and several Catholic bishops. When Hitler and the Church came to terms for a concordat, it cemented the impression that Hitler was a man of the Church which the Church could do business with.
signing the Concordat is Cardinal Pacelli, later to become Pope Pius XII. By 1933, he was the Vatican Secretary of State. Far left is Prelate Ludwig Kass, leader of the Center Party. Seated second from his left is Franz von Papen, who was a German nobleman, Catholic politician, general staff officer and diplomat, who served as Chancellor of Germany in 1932. Standing at the far right can be seen the little-known Vatican prelate, Montini, later to become Pope Paul VI.
At a time when the heads of the major nations in the world faced a new Germany with cool reserve and considerable suspicion, the Catholic Church, the greatest moral power on earth, through the Concordat expressed its confidence in the new German government. There was religious freedom for Catholics during Nazi Germany per the terms of the Concordat between the Holy See and the German Reich. Article 1. The German Reich guarantees freedom of profession and public practice of the Catholic religion.
Another well-informed person, the mainspring of the pact between the Holy See and Berlin and the Pope's secret chamberlain, Franz von Papen, was even more explicit. The Third Reich is the first world power which not only acknowledges, but also puts into practice the high principles of the papacy. To this we will add the results of this putting into practice of the high principles of the papacy. 25 million victims of the concentration camps, the official figure issued by the United Nations.
Secret History of the Jesuits, page 164. Pope Benedict XVI, current pope when he was in the Hitler Youth.
His father, Joseph Ratzinger Sr., was an Ordnungspolizei, also known as Orpo. The Orpo was the name for the uniformed regular German police force that existed in Nazi Germany between the years of 1936 and 1945. After their green uniforms, they were also referred to as Grün Polizei, Green Police. Joseph Ratzinger Sr. served in the Bavarian Landespolizei for several years as a rural policeman. Various sources state that the Ratzingers' views toward the National Socialist German Workers' Party caused the family some hardship, including the family having to move several times in the 1930s. There is no evidence, however, that Joseph Ratzinger Sr. was ever arrested for anti-Nazi tendencies. He continued to serve in the police even after such events as the Night of the Long Knives and the passing of the Nuremberg Laws. In 1936, Joseph Ratzinger Sr. became a member of the Orpo after all the police forces of Nazi Germany were incorporated into a national police force.
Here are some pictures of Dominican monks serving meals to Nazis. You can see how this could play a role in the conscience of the Nazi. The religion he grew up in was supporting their fascism. Who is more evil? The Roman Catholic Church, of course, although the Nazis are not by any means innocent. The Inquisition was suggested by Dominic de Guzman and was begun in 1204. It was hell's masterpiece of cunning, perfidy, cruelty, and all-around wickedness. It was conducted with the rankest injustice. The victim was dragged into court without witness and without any information as to what the charge against him. He was not allowed an attorney or the presence of friends, but under the cruelest torture it was demanded that he recant his heresies, oftentimes not knowing what the item in charge of which he was to recant. Hitler, Goebbels, Himmler, and most members of the party's old guard were Catholics, wrote M. Frederick Hoffet. It was not by accident that because of its chief religion, the National Socialist government was the most Catholic Germany ever had. This kinship between National Socialism and Catholicism is most striking if we study closely the propaganda methods and the interior organization of the party. On that subject, nothing is more instructive than Joseph Goebbels' works. He had been brought up in a Jesuit college and was a seminarist before devoting himself to literature and politics. Every page, every line of his writings recall the teaching of his masters. So he stresses obedience and contempt for truth. Some lies are as useful as bread, he proclaimed with virtue of moral relativism, extracted from Ignatius of Loyola's writings.
Joseph Goebbels. He was Nazi member of the Reichstag from 1928 to 1933. Reich Minister of Enlightenment and Propaganda from 1933 to 1945, Reich Commissioner for Total Mobilization from 1944 to 1945. On May 1, 1945, he poisoned his 6 children, then shot his wife and killed himself to escape the advancing Allied armies. Joseph Goebbels was born into a strict Catholic working-class family from Reich in the Rhineland on October 29, 1897. He was educated at a Roman Catholic school and went on to study history and literature at the University of Heidelberg. Goebbels was exempted from military service during World War I because of a crippled foot, the result of contracting polio as a child. Joseph Goebbels' wife Magda, whose Jewish father died at the Buchenwald slave labor camp, and the 6 children whom they killed before killing themselves. The eldest son in uniform by Magda's previous marriage was in the Luftwaffe and survived the war. Goebbels was so close to fellow Catholic Hitler that he had him serve as first witness at his Catholic marriage. Heinrich Himmler, the son of a pious authoritarian Roman Catholic schoolmaster who had once been tutor to the Bavarian crown prince. His mother, Anna Maria Himmler, maiden name Hader, was also a devout Catholic. Kurt Heinrich Himmler, Reichsfuhrer of the SS, Gestapo, and German police forces, seemed to be one of the most impregnated by clericalism amongst the Catholic members of Hitler's entourage. His father had been director of a Catholic school in Munich, then tutor of Prince Ruprecht of Bavaria. His brother, a Benedictine monk, lived at the monastery of Maria Laach, one of the pan-German high places. He also had an uncle, Jesuit Himmler, who had held the important position of canon at the court of Bavaria. The German author Walter Hagen gives also this discreet information. The Jesuits' general, Count Halk von Ledachowski, was ready to organize on the common basis of anti-communism some collaboration between the German Secret Service and the Jesuit order. As a result, within the SS Central Security Service, an organization was created, and most of its main posts were held by Catholic priests wearing the black uniform of the SS. The Jesuit Father Himmler was one of its superior officers. After the Third Reich's capitulation, the Jesuit Father Himmler was arrested and imprisoned at Nuremberg. His hearing by the International Tribunal would have apparently been most interesting, but Providence was keeping a watchful eye. Heinrich Himmler's uncle never appeared before that court. One morning he was found dead in his cell, and the public never learned the cause of his death. Another highly placed Nazi, Walter Schellenberg, former chief of the German counter-espionage, completed this confidence from the Führer after the war. The SS organization had been constituted by Himmler according to the principles of the Jesuits' order. Their regulations and the spiritual exercises prescribed by Ignatius of Loyola were the model Himmler tried to copy exactly. The Reichsführer SS, Himmler's title as Supreme Chief of the SS, was to be the equivalent of the Jesuits' general, and the whole structure of the direction was a close imitation of the Catholic Church's hierarchical order. A medieval castle near Paderborn in Westphalia, and called Webelsburg, was restored. It became what could be called an SS monastery.